The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
On the line with us now, the voice of the Braves for about 105 games, I believe, Chip Caray. How you doing, Chip?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, some kind of exciting, not so exciting times in Atlanta over the past few days. But the thing that everyone's talking about here and the callers are talking about is the departure of Bobby Cox, more than really the departure of the Braves from the playoffs, the departure of Bobby Cox, his legacy, and of course now we hear Freddie Gonzalez coming in. What is the feeling in Atlanta? Is there kind of a void there?
Well, I think it's kind of like Charles Dickens wrote. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. I think all of us certainly love and appreciate Bobby Cox, and all of us who had the good fortune of working with him for so many years. And he had the opportunity to spend any time with them all on the airplane, on the bench, in the clubhouse, in the lobbies of hotels, having a cup of coffee in the morning, are really going to miss this guy. Take away the baseball part of it. He's one of the finest men I've ever had the good fortune to spend any time with at all. He's a pro's pro. He's passionate. He loves the Braves. He loves the game. He expects the game to be played a certain way, and he doesn't suffer fools lightly. I mean, he's really a remarkable guy. And so everything has to come to an end. His tenure as the manager has done that. But 29 years after he started, he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's got a World Series ring, and I think his legacy in Atlanta is as secure as any guy that ever put the uniform on as an Atlanta Brave will ever be. But all of us are certainly excited with the announcement of Freddie Gonzalez. He's a guy that we know very well.
Right.
Freddie's a class act, a guy that's been in the organization for a while. He spent some time with the Marlins. But a great guy that I think is going to continue some of the successes that Bobby Cox had. So we're hoping it'll be a seamless transition.
Now, with the departure of Bobby Cox, I mean, that's been the big story. Are we also about to hear about the departure of Chipper Jones?
No, Chipper's going to try to come back. Chipper had knee surgery. He blew out his knee playing against the Astros. I think in August it was. He's way ahead of schedule. He thinks that he'll be ready to go come spring training. He's got 2 more years left on his contract. It'll be weird for him, he said, because he's played every game of his major league career as a player under Bobby Cox. But again, as I said, there's going to be this seamless transition, I think, between Bobby and Freddie Gonzalez, whom all of our veteran players know very well. And look, we're a better club when Chipper Jones is able to play.
Right.
The saddest part of the season for us was he was really starting to kick it into high gear at the plate and in the field and was playing his best baseball of the year at the time of his injury. And with all due respect to Brooks Conrad and Omar Infante and some of the other guys that were plugged in his absence, there aren't too many Chipper Jones running around. We really missed him the final 2 months of the season. We're all looking forward to having him back opening day next year.
Chip, Ari Lewis here. I wanted to actually ask about Chipper Jones because let's say hypothetically he wouldn't have come back. In your eyes, is he a Hall of Famer, and if so, a first ballot Hall of Famer?
For me, yes and yes. I think he is a Hall of Famer. I think he has one of the highest switch hitting over 300 for his career as a switch hitter. I think he's 3rd or 4th on the all-time switch hit home run list. He's been to the playoffs 14 times. He's got a World Series ring. He's over 400 home runs. He's played the bulk of his career as a third baseman. There are only a handful of third basemen in the Hall of Fame as it stands. I think when you think about the guys on the field for the Atlanta Braves, certainly pitchers' names come to mind, the Spencer, the Glavins. But you can't really talk about what those guys have done without the contributions of Chipper Jones. And I think that he's been a special player for a long time. And, I think he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. And another one of those guys that's going to be a very crowded dais at Cooperstown whenever Chipper Jones decides to retire, because a lot of other Braves, I think, will have a chance to go in with him.
Now, let me ask you this. Chipper obviously being one of the greats, unfortunately this past playoff series kind of gave us a new GOAT, if you will, and Brooks Conrad. How does he's a journeyman anyway. How does he regroup and move on from this?
Well, that's a question you'd have to ask Brooks, but I think if you ask the guys in the locker room about Brooks Conrad, I think they would all tell you that they wouldn't have gotten to this position to even be in the playoffs without his contributions. I mean, the guy had 2 pinch-hit grand slams, great off the bench. He played terrific baseball all year long. He just found himself in an unfortunate circumstance where the ball kept finding him in the final week, and he kept making errors. To his credit, he didn't run away from it. He didn't hide from it. He didn't say, hey, it was a bad hop or anything else. He took it like a man, and I think his teammates were incredibly supportive of him. I'm a big Brooks Conrad fan. He's a terrific player, a guy that's a wonderful story if you think about persistence and perseverance. 3 straight years, he was the last cut for the Houston Astros and played at AAA and never got a sniff of Major League Baseball. and then finally got a chance to make the Braves team as their last guy to make the roster. And he had a super year. Didn't have a good playoff, but he had a super year. And again, we wouldn't have gotten to the playoffs without him. So I think he'll be fine.
Chip, wanted to ask about Terry Pendleton. A lot of people thought that he was the guy that was going to take it for Bobby Cox, 1991 MVP with the Braves, and been around the franchise for a while. Where does he go from here? Is he going to stay with the Braves or try to look somewhere else?
Well, I think that's one of the questions we'll know in the next couple of days or weeks, and that is how Freddie Gonzalez will fill out his staff. I think in this day and age of Major League Baseball, it's very difficult, and it's very rare, really, to see a guy get a managerial job where he hasn't managed before.
Right.
Look, I'm a Terry Pendleton fan. He knows the game. He knows how to play it. He's a terrific hitting coach. He's a terrific person. He's a terrific leader. But I don't know if the Braves would have found themselves in a good situation replacing a guy with 29 years of experience with a man who hasn't managed anywhere before. That's not to say that Terry wouldn't be a great manager. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. But I think that was a risk that the Braves probably weren't willing to take, and whether he stays on Freddie Gonzalez's staff remains to be seen. My assumption is he would be. He would be on the staff. Whether he remains as the hitting coach or moves to another spot on that coaching staff, again, is a decision that Freddie and his guys are going to have to make.
Chip, let me ask you, personally, you come from obviously a line of broadcasters, which is not unheard of. We had Kenny Albert, Kenny and Marv, you have Sean and Will McDonough, Jeremy and Dick Schaap. I mean, what is it? Is it something in the bloodstream that just, once you're at the ballpark every day, you just don't want to leave?
That's part of it. My dad and I used to joke about it. He kind of got mad. He said, "So you weren't good enough to make it between the lines where the real money is." That was kind of our little inside joke. That's part of it. But we're no different than anybody else. We just have a job that's more visible. I mean, if you think about it, how many sons follow their fathers in the medical practice,
sure,
right, practice, or ditch digging practice? It just so happens that our office is a ballpark, and people look at us on a TV or listen to us on a radio. So, at least in our family, we never thought of ourselves as any different than anybody else. We're just very fortunate to have a job where there's no heavy lifting. As David Hill, the president of Fox Sports, said, and I really agree with him, we get to live and play in life's sandbox every day for our living, and it's the next best thing I would imagine to being a player, and it's a great lifestyle, and all of us who have these jobs really every day, I think, during the summer months count our blessings indeed.
It's certainly a great gig. I want to ask you, growing up as a kid, you've heard, obviously your father made a great call in the 92 NLCS, and I'm sure you've seen some great calls on TV as well. Do you ever think to yourself, wow, I can't wait till I'm in that position, almost like a batter, like bottom of the ninth, I want to hit the home run, and as a broadcaster thinking, I want to be there and get ready to make this call and have it be remembered?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a conversation with my dad about that in 1982. That's kind of my epiphany when I knew that I wanted to do what my dad did. He called a pinch hit grand slam from Bob Watson that beat the Dodgers in the heat of a big pennant race. A pinch hit home run off Steve Howe that won a game, and my dad had to call, and he was going crazy. All of us who do our job really love that moment. And personally speaking, I think our job is to make your call and then shut up and get out of the way and let the moment speak for itself. And I think over the course of my career, I've done that. I know my grandfather used to do that. My dad would say the same thing too. Ultimately, we are there just to sort of carry the water. The bucket of water is the story. The carrier is the guy that hopefully doesn't spill it on the way to the final destination. I think that's one thing that for the most part, all of us who work behind a microphone strive for. Don't blow the big moment. It happens to us sometimes. It's unfortunate. It's unavoidable. But I think 9 times out of 10, there's the really good guys who know what to say and what not to say and how much to say and how much not to say, more importantly, when those classic life-altering or game-altering moments happen.
Well, we know you're busy, and we really appreciate your time. It's funny, there's such a strange connection here. I mean, with Atlanta and the Jewish population in Atlanta, the big Brave supporters, sure. And so I know that we always we had Brian Jordan on last week, so we like to keep this Atlanta tie, and we really appreciate your time, and wish you all the best, and of course the Braves all the best.
Well, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Anytime you need a call, give me a shout. Best wishes to you guys, and I hope to get to your part of the world someday soon.
Great. Thanks so
Chip.
much.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one.